Hello, we're going to cover some R visualizations, basic graphing and plotting and using ggplot2. There's a lot that can be done in R, but this is just going to cover the essentials. So first we're going to read in our file using the diamonds dataset, which we've seen before. As it turns out, it's actually a ggplot2 dataset, so we just need to load the ggplot2 data library first, and then we can just call diamonds. So we'll do that here. And once we've called diamonds, we can check it to see what data we're working with. It looks exactly like the diamonds data set that we were working with before. So we have the 6x10 data set, and our variables include caret, cut, color, clarity, depth, table, price, x, y, and z. Okay, so first, we're just going to start with some basic plotting functions that are available to us in R and not using ggplot at all. So to create a histogram, we use the hist function, and we're going to run it on the caret variable. And if we would like to title our histogram, we can use the argument main. And if we want to title our axes, we can use the arguments x lab and y lab, x label and y label. In this case, we're just going to create the x label since it's a histogram. All right, so you can see our title here, caret histogram matches, same with our X label. And since we didn't specify the Y label, it defaults on a histogram to frequency, which is fine. And so, yeah, this is a pretty basic histogram. If we wanted to do a very basic scatter plot, we could use the plot function. You need to use the tilde in between the price and caret because those are the two variables that we're going to play with, and we have to specify when using the plot function where our data is coming from. So if we were to run this, we get this scatter plot here that looks like this. There are a lot of arguments you could include in here to change the colors, but this is just a very basic functions. Same for a box plot. There's a box plot function. We could call it on the carets variable, and this is what it looks like. We didn't add a title or any labels, so we have just a very plain box plot chart. So ggplot2 helps us create more advanced plots, and the way that ggplot2 functions work is we plot a base layer which calls the data that we're going to be plotting, and then we add layers to it. So there's a ggplot2 cheat sheet which is super helpful. You can use it to look up which plot types are most appropriate for your variable and your variable types, and then you can see all of your options for adding on various layers, as well as the most common themes, which you can call, and you get the kind of the syntax for a huge variety of plots all on one page, or I think it's 2 pages, but still. So I highly recommend finding the ggplot2 cheat sheet and keeping that handy when you're doing a lot of data visualizations. So we've already called ggplot2 the library previously so that we could access the diamonds dataset. So if we were to plot some histograms, that would look like this. So we call the data as our first layer. So always the ggplot, and then your data is the first function, and then we added the histogram layer on top of that. And the aesthetic mapping is what this AES function stands for, and we're going to set x equal to caret. If we wanted a more advanced looking type of histogram, we could do a density plot instead. Instead of calling histogram, we could call density, and then you can see in this argument I've added the fill so that I don't just get the standard gray. I'm going to fill it as blue. So let's take a look at these first before we move on. So there's our very basic histogram using ggplot. And then here's the density plot with the fill as blue. And there's also other layers you can add to change how the grid lines look, or even the scale of your axes. So just things to keep in mind if you want to try some more advanced plotting. ggplot scatter plots are a little bit different. In our ggplot function, we call data, and then we also set the aesthetic mapping here for our x and y. So we're going to set x equal to caret and y equal to price. And then we're going to add on the points as our next layer. It will default to just standard scatterplot points, but you can also add arguments here. So we add an aesthetic mapping where we set color equal to the color variable, so it will color on that variable. It just happens to be called color as well. And then we can also change the point style, so we could make them diamonds or squares, and all of that is covered on the cheat sheet and in the text, but for the sake of this, we're going to keep it pretty simple. So if we were to run this, we get this scatter plot, and then you can see that we've colored on the color variable. So we have the legend over here where D, E, F, G, H, I, and J all have been assigned a different color and then are plotted with price on the y-axis and caret on the x-axis. If we do this facet wrap layer by color, we can get a matrix of scatter plots. And you can use this function to create a matrix of histograms. You can use it for all kinds of things, but this is what that looks like. So it split out each of our scatter plots by color instead of having them all aggregated onto the same graph. For box plots and violin plots, we can similarly just use the geom box plot and geom violin layers, and there are arguments you could add in there, but to keep it simple, we'll just do a very basic box plot. So this one is just caret. If we wanted to do it by cut and caret, we could do that. We'll do it with the violin plot so you can see what the violin plots look like. And so now we have the box plot for caret by cut. So fair, good, very good, premium, and ideal. And then finally, we can also do line plots. We'll use a different data set just because this data set isn't particularly great for line plots. So we'll call this other economics data set to get a date along the x-axis. We'll set the other variable pop on the y, and then the whole point of this is to show you that to get a line plot, you add the geom line layer. And when we do that, you get something that looks like this. So you can see how you can highly customize your graphs by adding titles, labels to your x and y axis, by changing how you color on your graph layers, and you have a wide variety of plot types at your disposal. These are just a few of the ones that are most common that are available to you through the ggplot2 library, but there are plenty of others as well. And with ggplot2, you can also do geographical data as well and create data layered on top of maps, which is awesome. So that is your introduction to data viz in R using the native R functions as well as some simple ggplot2 plotting options.